Hello everyone and welcome to this Kaplan Instagram Live. My name is Sarah Gifford and I am the Careers Information Advice and Guidance Lead here at Kaplan. And today we're going to be talking for about 20 to 30 minutes on the theme of building career resilience. And this is really important this week, particularly because it is National Careers Week. And as part of this session, I am so pleased to be able to introduce Rohan Kallicharan to our session today. Rohan, I am delighted you're able to join us. You're a resilience guru, a marathon runner, a mind ambassador, HR director. I mean, so many titles to your name. Thank you so much for joining us.
Look, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. And in fairness, I may have various descriptions and titles, but generally, I'm Rohan, runner, husband, go to work, earn some money. Well, we don't really go to work at the moment. I come to the back bedroom, do some work, pay the bills, and just enjoy life as best as possible.
Oh, fantastic. Well, today's session, as I said, we're going to be talking about careers resilience, but of course, throughout, please feel free, everyone, to ask any questions, and we will be following up any kind of answers that we have to those questions in our story afterwards. So please just keep asking them. So I guess to start us off, Rohan, it would be really good to, I think, talk about, the fact that we're in a very different climate at the moment. There's a lot of uncertainty, and we hear employers talking a lot about kind of candidates needing to have resilience, particularly because of what businesses have been through. And kind of in National Careers Week, we obviously want to support those individuals and talk about how we can, find that career resilience throughout their career journey. But what is career resilience? We talk about it in this way, but actually, what does it mean?
Yeah, it's a great question, Sarah. So my background before coming into more generalist HR was in recruitment, and resilience and tenacity, they're two of the most overused phrases that I ever heard working in that space, because not overused because it's not important, but overused because people didn't really understand what they were asking for. So it's kind of like, we want someone who's resilient. You do? Yeah. And then quite literally in the next sentence, they'd actually be turning down the most resilient qualities because they weren't X, Y, Z. So the understanding of what resilience truly is so important. And for me, resilience, it's not just a single aspect. Resilience is a toolkit. Resilience really is a kit of tools which serve you through, everything that we will do within our lives. Resilience isn't just about the moments when things are going awfully wrong. Actually, those same tools which allow you to be resilient are the same things which allow you to thrive in other situations.
I love that, because that's about having the tools that you can kind of change and learn from. It's not just kind of inherent in your being.
Oh, absolutely. It's people aren't born resilient. A little baby in an incubator, a little baby in their mother's arms, the only resilience they have to rely on is that of their parents. They aren't resilient at that point. Resilience is something that it's shaped by our experiences. If I were to put it into perhaps an accountancy terminology for some of your students who might be looking, I always think of resilience as being built up by the sum of every transaction. So actually, if I look at the transactions which go into my profit and loss account, my own, profit and loss account is my resilience toolkit. And that's built up by every transaction of my life, both the positive transactions and, both the debits and the credits essentially have built up that resilience. They've shaped me into the individual that I am to be able to react to situations. And if I transfer across to the balance sheet, for example, my fixed assets are my resilience toolkit. They're the tools I use. They are my fixed assets. It's my personality, my skills. my current assets or my cash flow even, they're the circumstances around me. And it's those fixed assets which dictate how I can respond to those circumstances.
And Rohan, you touched on a really interesting point there. And I wonder if there's moments where you find that you don't use those tools in quite the right way. You know, some days do you feel more resilient than others?
Absolutely, because we're all human beings, and I think, you know, as well as the work I do around resilience, as you know, a mental health awareness speaker, you know, the one thing I'm constantly telling people, actually, it is okay not to be okay. By the way, guys and girls, I will tell you as well, right now it's okay to be okay, because there's so much right now. People are telling us that you should be miserable out the world around you. Actually, you don't have to be. There are things about this whole experience which we're going to learn and take forward with us. There are things about this whole lockdown experience that we're learning in our lives which actually will make them better in the long run. So it's all right to thrive through this experience as well as accepting that not everything's okay. And absolutely, you know, on a daily basis, there are going to be moments when, you know what, I don't feel as resilient. However, it's on those days that I actually do have to remind myself that resilience actually, it's not about me. It's not about how I'm feeling today. Resilience is that toolkit, which could be the assets that I've got, my friends that I can talk to, the tools I can rely on. And actually, they don't change from day to day. They're constant. So actually, even when I'm not feeling resilient, my toolkit is resilient for me.
Yeah, brilliant. I love that. And thinking, you know, in the context of kind of careers, you know, how can someone in a career build up their resilience? You know, what kind of top tips do you have on helping someone, you know, in their career to kind of build up that resilience?
I think, look, for me, it's been so many things. I think, you know, how we deal with criticism, how we deal with rejection, there's so many. They're two of the key things that are going to actually build up our career resilience, because actually without experiencing those moments, it's actually really quite difficult. But, you know, where do I start with? It's actually having that growth mindset. So it's going into my career as a, you know, I'd love to put myself back into, you know, into the mind of a 16 or 18-year-old now, knowing the things that I know now and I didn't know then. So, you know, back then I thought I had all the answers. Oh, well, I believe me, I had no answers whatsoever. But I think, where do we start? Number one is the piece of advice I'd give to anyone starting now is, it's not a straight road. And actually, if it's a straight road, it's going to be really, really boring. So actually embrace the bends, because that's where you're going to learn most.
Absolutely.
You know, and actually it doesn't have to be high speed, high octane, you know, chicanes. Actually just enjoy every moment of the journey. Be able to settle in those moments when it's going well, and actually be able to learn and adapt in those moments when it's not. So actually, you know, that first piece is, it's not a straight line. And I think that's the most important starting point.
True. That's so true. And I think at the moment, you know, I've heard from a lot of people that perhaps their job role has had to adapt or change during this particular time, you know, or they have had to maybe change their career aspirations because the sector they want to go in is, you know, there's nothing in there at the moment. And actually, I love this idea that a career isn't linear, you know, that you can still learn things and gain really valuable experiences wherever you find yourself.
Absolutely. And look, guys, I actually speak from absolute personal experience. So
Yes,
I went
you
off.
did accountancy, didn't you?
I did indeed. So I left I left school age 18, went off to uni where I studied accountancy and French. The only thing is, I didn't really study. I can put my hand up here and know that I'm one of the few HR directors around at the moment who failed first year 3 times at university. Now, if I look back, I was a very, very ill person at that time. I was, I wasn't diagnosed at that point, but I was living with the onset of bipolar disorder, which would absolutely destroy my life over a period of time. But through that time, I mean, I failed first year 3 times. However, I did manage to, come away from that. I became a SEMA pass finalist. I regret to say I never actually did fully qualify, because actually I came out of it, and again I was at a point where my health was very poor. I didn't really understand what I wanted to do with life. Actually, if I'm totally honest, my mental health was so poor. All I wanted to do was survive, and I wasn't well enough to hold down a job. But actually, I'm living proof that every experience in our life shapes us and gives us skills for something else further down the line. Because the most basic job that I was able to at least get into when I was recovered was into a sales role. In my job, fortunately, it was a sales recruitment role where I was recruiting accountants. So the work that I'd done within accountancy was still so valid for me. So there's that curve I'm talking about. It was a long curve, but saying, okay, I'm not going to be an accountant anymore. However, I have got the knowledge and credibility to speak to accountants about their career and be able to speak to newly passed finalists, PQs, and say, okay, look, these are the kind of opportunities we've got for you. Is this actually going to be right for your career growth? So I was able to make that transition. And then again, eventually, when I moved from being an agency recruiter into being an in-house recruiter, I did it working for a top 20 accountancy firm, looking at their graduate program. So every step on the journey has actually allowed me to develop skills which I may not have had otherwise. And as an HR director now, when I look at my budgets, when I look at, what we can do as an organization for our people in terms of the commercial awareness and the market awareness around me, that time I spent, working as a financial analyst and doing my SEMA, it's the most valuable grounding I ever had. So the reality is, again, it's been anything but straight line for me. It's been, crikey, Spaghetti Junction couldn't do anything in terms of what I've done. But every curve on that road has prepared me for this minute now. And every curveball that's thrown will prepare me for where I am in a few years' time. And that's the way I always look at it in terms of your career. Use every experience.
I think it's really interesting though, because it's really easy, I think, for us to say that with hindsight, isn't it? When you're in the moment, it's so difficult to get kind of caught up. And we did some kind of poll questions, ahead of today. And, one of the things that was quite clear was that individuals wanted to know, how to deal with rejection. About 42% of people said that they wanted to know how to deal with that, because you're quite right that actually when you get to the end of your journey, or you're in the middle of your great career and you're actually loving what you're doing, you can look back and think, that was great. I know why I, turned that different corner or did this different route. But actually when you hear someone give you a rejection, it can be really soul destroying, can't it?
Yeah, and actually, so look, my tips for dealing with rejection are twofold. In the first instance, smile and listen. Smile and listen. Go home and throw your toys violently out of the pram in a way that nobody else can see it. Keep that piece private, but everything you do in public is driven by grace, by humility and class. Now they may sound like three really big words, but it's so important.
Yeah.
So whatever you do in the privacy of your own mind, process it.
Yeah.
And if you want to be angry, process it, but let it go. But externally facing, everything you do, actually really take it on board. You know, I was only being slightly flippant in that response. I'm really, it's so important, actually, process it. It's so important to process it. And anger's not a bad thing. Get it out of your system. But actually,
I always say that your emotions are valid because they're your emotions. But you're right. You have to process it in the correct way, and that probably isn't, you know, shouting at the person in front of you.
Definitely, you want to. Number one, you may well encounter that person again, and believe me, it's not a cliche. It happens. So it's actually learn and solicit feedback. You know, I've got a great example of someone who wrote to me after she had a decline, and actually that person she was brilliant, but actually everything she told me about why she wanted a new challenge told me that coming to work for me, where I was at that particular time, wasn't the right move for her to make. What she did was she solicited that feedback from me. So I've no doubt that she may have thrown her toys out of the pram in private and told them, told her friends, oh, I interviewed with this horrible man and he didn't give me the job. However, what she did publicly to me was write me and say, look, thank you so much for your time. Could you tell me what I could improve on in the future, etc. I said, actually, you were outstanding. This is what you did really well. And please do keep in touch. I wish you every success.
And that feedback's going to be so valuable to her or to anyone that takes that on.
She worked for me in my next job.
Oh my goodness, what a great story. Absolutely.
Because she'd taken that feedback on board, but more importantly, what she'd done in her response was she'd left an indelible mark in my mind of, actually, this is someone who is talented. She's not my right for now, but she could well be right for something I do in the future.
She left in you her image, her personal brand, didn't she?
Yes,
of actually, I can handle criticism and I can handle rejection, and left a really impressionable professional imprint on you.
Absolutely. So actually, how we deal with rejection is, our level of maturity to actually step back and don't take it personally. And wow, that's difficult. It really is difficult. But actually, stepping back and really being objective and asking the question, is this criticism fair? Is this rejection fair? And actually, most of the time people come with good intentions, and it really is, whether it's criticism internally from a current employer or rejection in a job interview, the way we improve and the way we build our resilience toolkit is by asking people for feedback. Ask people, what can we do differently? And that's how we build our tools. And how we do that, for me, the most important aspect of being resilient, and this is in our career, in everything we do in our lives, it's by being humble. Because humility is at the heart of the mindset, which allows us to ask other people, what can I do better? How can I improve?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess for some, people, also having kind of role models that they can look at, that they admire for their resilience. I'm sure you have your own kind of role models that you might look at, particularly maybe for running, because you do so many marathons. You've got those kind of goals and aims, and actually you've got the tools, and now you've got that kind of aim, you can work towards what you want to be. You might not be there straight away. You have to work at it.
Absolutely. And look, just in the same way that we need to be, humble enough to ask, to ask others for that candid feedback. Again, having the right people around us, you know, sharing things with our friends, our families, who are the people who will give us an honest opinion, you know, and actually reflecting deep within. You know, two of the most difficult questions that you might ask yourself after an unsuccessful job application might be, okay, did I really prepare well enough?
Yeah.
Did I actually give it everything that I could have done? And actually beyond that, if the answer is no to that question, you actually have to ask yourself, is it because of an external reason, or is it actually, I didn't really want this one, so my head wasn't in it?
Yeah.
And actually, sometimes you've just got to be so brutally honest in your approach to things. Brutal honesty back to ourselves is the beginning of growth.
And there's no shame in that either.
Oh no, absolutely. No. Look, this is your life, your career. You have to make the decisions that are right for you. Absolutely, you are solely accountable for you. You cannot hold anyone else accountable or make excuses. You have the keys, which means you can take the risks, you can make the decisions, but whatever you do, solicit feedback from those people around you that you can trust.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. So I guess we've talked a lot about kind of criticism and, you know, rejection, and, you know, I guess, Rohan, I would, you know, really like to get your personal experience of kind of some setbacks that you've had in life and how you've overcome those.
Other than failing first year 3 times. No, I'm joking. Look, it's been a lifelong learning experience, because actually, absolutely right. There's nothing in our life which prepares us to be humble and accept that we're wrong. There's nothing in our life which prepares us to accept that I wasn't good enough today. There's nothing in our life which prepares us to say someone else was better than me, or that prepares us to say, actually, you know what, this wasn't the right thing, until it happens to us. It happens to us. And, you know, I always look back on a couple of things. I mean, I'm 46 years old now, for what it's worth, and this was probably around 2000. Thank you. If this would have been around 2010, so I was my mid-30s. I was possibly at a point where I wasn't stagnating in my in the role that I was at the time. And at the time I was an executive consultant doing very well as a recruitment consultant with Reed in Birmingham, which is where I'm from. And I knew in my heart of hearts, though, that it wasn't the time for me to move. And yet I knew that I wasn't happy at Reed. I'd stopped performing. I'd stopped putting it in. And I was getting told, you're not putting it in anymore. And I knew it. I knew it. I wasn't happy. And absolutely. And what I did was I thought of the immediate option, right, you know what, you're a successful consultant, let's just run and go somewhere else and do it well. And I thought, oh, why not move to London? And actually moving to London at that point would have been an absolute disaster, because actually the way my life was set up at the time, it wasn't ready for it. And you know, I remember I came to an interview, and again, it's about soliciting feedback. I didn't get that job, and I remember at the time I spoke to the director of the company, and he just said, look, honestly, Ro, I've never been so disappointed in an interview. He said, I saw your CV, I spoke to you on the phone, I was expecting you to come and light this place up, and actually you just seem so flat, so down in yourself. I can't employ you. And it was the best piece of feedback that I've ever had. I went back. Yeah, I just went back. I went back to Reed, and I said, okay, let's hold on. I'm not going out like this. I do want to go out, but I'm not going to apply for another job while my mindset's like this. So we're going to get back to basics. We're going to put it right so that when I'm applying for jobs, I'm applying not because I'm running away, but because it's the right move for me at the right time.
That's so important, isn't it? Having that mindset.
Yeah. And actually, look, I understand for some people who are watching this and who will listen, we don't always have that choice to make. Okay. I had the privilege of being looking for a job for the wrong reasons from within a job. Okay. So I understand. I'm very fortunate. However, you know, what I would also say is we can still, even in those most difficult circumstances, we just need to be able to step back and, again, always understand why we're doing something and actually make sure we're doing it for the right reasons. And that reason might be simply, I've lost my current job and I need to put food on the table. And if that's your driver, that fuel will drive you through. But however, if you go into an interview with no driver at all, other than the fact that you're running away from something that's not working, you're never going to be fueled in that regard. So, you know, for me, that's a personal example of just learning from rejection and being able to adjust moving forward. And actually, I've been brave enough because of that experience at times in my career now to actually be able to do things that, you know, I left my job too from now, which would have been in around 2017. I left Read Online in London. By that time, I'd moved to London, been successful, and I left without something to go to because I knew actually, okay, you've done everything you can do. Again, I was in a position of privilege of having 2-3 months grace in terms of bonus, knowing I didn't have to work for that period of time, and having options in terms of what I might do next. But again, when I went and interviewed for my next job, I went in with a focus which couldn't be denied because I wasn't running away from something. I wasn't going into that interview because I was deflated by something. I was going in with the confidence of knowing this is who I am. This is what I can give you. And actually, you shouldn't be too interested in what I'm walking from. I'm about to tell you about what I'm going to provide for you.
And Rohan, that's career resilience at its best, isn't it? We've talked about criticism and rejection today, and sometimes people think that they have to have those moments in order to demonstrate career resilience. But you've just proven that actually career resilience is also about giving yourself back a drive and a passion and kind of confidence. There is a positive side to resilience, which I think is great. You know, everyone can experience this kind of building career resilience that we've been talking about today.
Of course it is. And Sarah, look, our careers are intertwined into our lives. It's so easy for us to, you know, talk about, this is my career, this is my work life, and this is my home life. If the last 12 months have taught us anything in lockdown is we don't have two lives. We have one life, and it's holistic, and it all feeds into one. And again, I know I'm speaking from an ivory tower of privilege when I talk through my own experiences now. I'm an HR director. I'm well rewarded. I've got a great life. My wife's, similarly, she's an HR leader. We don't want for anything, but the reality is, when it comes down to our careers, you have to be fueled by what you do. You have to have an enjoyment of what you do. You have to have purpose. Again, without purpose, you are not going to have career resilience. So actually, it may be unique to you. Some people will work for the money and they're not fussed about enjoying what they do. Others will work, like me. I want to work for a company who makes a difference in people's lives, because that gives me the feeling of knowing I am part of the mission, making giving something back to people. And again, I've got the privilege of being able to do that because both myself and my wife earn fairly well. So if one of us wanted to take a pay cut because we wanted to work in that kind of environment, we probably could. Some of us want to work because actually this company gives me the flexibility to pursue my other life's ambitions away from work. It doesn't matter what your purpose is as long as you have it.
As long as you know it.
Have
it and know it.
Yeah, you absolutely. You've got to have your purpose. You've got to know what it is, because that's what's going to drive you in your career. That's what's going to drive your career resilience. That's what's going to allow you to make the right decisions and to bounce back when things don't go as well as you wanted them to, and treasure those moments when they don't go well, because actually that's where we learn. It's where we learn
the most.
Exactly. Resilience isn't just about bouncing back. You know, I've got this analogy. It's almost as if, you know, if I'm stood with a tennis ball throwing it against a wall, okay, if I keep on throwing it and it keeps on coming back at me and smashing me, some people are going to say, oh, he's resilient. Look at him. He's letting the ball hit him the whole time and he's showing no pain. That's not resilience.
Yeah.
Resilience is standing from a different angle, throwing it so I'm out of the way.
Yeah.
Or throwing it slightly more gently so I can catch it.
Yeah.
That's resilience.
Yeah.
Resilience isn't about just doing the same thing for the same outcome, which is making no progress.
That's so
Resilience
true.
is about making the right decision for a different outcome.
Rohan, that is, I think, the perfect ending to this session, because you've absolutely hit the nail on the head. Thank you so much for joining us. I mean, this has been a great session personally, but also I'm sure you know, individuals are also going to really value having heard you today. Please do continue to ask questions, everyone, and you know, we will be answering them as I mentioned earlier on our story. Thank you again, Rohan.
Thank you so much for having me, and good luck, everyone. It's a difficult time, but continue to persevere, continue to thrive, and continue to realize that it's not a straight road.
Absolutely. Bye.
Bye.